So, good afternoon, everyone. We've had a really good morning full of really interesting guests and panel discussions. So, it's really impressive to see that the crowd has now gathered for, I think, what can really be described as our set piece guest. So, I think this is someone that really needs no formal introduction, but for those of you who aren't necessarily boxing fans, it's a great pleasure to introduce the former IBF, WBA, and Ring Magazine light welterweight world champion, and the WBA welterweight world champion, Ricky The Hitman Hatton, MBE. Hey, welcome.
Good to see you.
So, Ricky, you're very welcome to the Speedy Hire Expo 2024. I think moving away from the format we've had this morning, where it's mainly been really business focused, because ultimately we all know you as a boxing and sporting legend, really, but also at the same time, you know, you've done some really good work around, you know, champion mental health and encouraging people to talk about it and seek help for it as well. But I think first of all, just to sort of explore a bit about sort of your background. So your dad was a footballer; he played for Man City. And I think at one point you were certainly on the books as a junior, as a YTS. But what made the change into boxing? Was it a sort of natural? Did you feel you were getting more success there?
I think I was just better at punching people. No. I was at the Manchester City School of Excellence as a 13, 14-year-old, and I played for me county, which was Tameside Boys. So I was obviously pretty good at my football, but at the same time I was boxing for England as a schoolboy boxer. I was winning junior ABAs, schoolboy titles, and even though I was doing well at the football, I just stood out that little bit more at the boxing. I'll be honest with you, when I was, you know, at Man City in the School of Excellence, yeah, there wasn't bad a bed player, but there was players there that, you know, you're not stupid. They were far superior to, you know, to me. I wasn't a bad player, but there were people that really, really stood out in my group, which I guess is a little bit what I did in my boxing club. You know, I stood out a little bit more in my boxing, and boxing is one of them sports that you either take to it or you don't. You know, the first time you get hit on the nose, you either like it or you don't. And funny enough, weird enough to say, but I liked it. Yeah, and it basically went from there, which was very, very strange because I come from a football background with my dad playing for Manchester City in the reserves back in the day. You'd thought that I would have gone down that route because no one in the family had ever really done boxing, but it was just something that I had a passion for straight away, yeah.
And I think you've obviously mentioned, you know, sort of boxing, you know, as a schoolboy and as a youngster, but you won numerous titles, and again, including the ABA Championship and a bronze at the World Games in Cuba as well. Did you ever consider going into the Olympics? Because I know that's been a sort of springboard for many another boxer's career.
Well, I certainly could have been. I won 9 national amateur titles as an amateur. I boxed for England at schoolboys and youth level, and got a bronze medal in the World Juniors. You know, won the ABAs. You know, at 18 years of age. So with the titles that I won, I was probably in line. You know, certainly in line for the Olympic Games. But the Olympic game, I was 17 when the Olympic Games was on, and then, you know, the minute the Olympic Games finished, I turned 18. I think about 4 weeks after. So if that would have been the case, I'd had to wait for another 4 years, you know, for the Olympics to come by. And I think what with the titles that I had won and everything like that, I think I'd have definitely been in for a shout. But I was training with the professionals, you know, from 16 years of age. I shouldn't have been, but I was training with the professionals, and I was going in and out all the professional gyms. You know, I was sparring with people like, you know, Ensley Bingham. He was the British light middleweight champion. Paul Burke was the British light welterweight champion, Commonwealth light welterweight champion. I was sparring with Liverpool's own Andy Olligan, was being trained by Billy Graham at the time. And I just loved, you know, the fact that these lads, were, as hard as boxing is, if it's a sport that you love, they were getting up every morning, getting the gym bag, getting the kit ready, throwing it in the boot, driving to the gym, and it's as hard as the game is to get paid for something that you love. I mean, that's quite rare these days, isn't it? That we have a job that we love. But I love the boxing, and I think if the truth be known, I think I think I was always going to go down the professional route. If the Olympics had just felt right, say, when I was 18, they'd just come around, I think I'd have stayed amateur a little bit longer and give it a go. But when it was 4 years off, no, my decision was to turn pro then.
Who were your boxing heroes growing up?
My first hero was Nigel Benn. And it's funny enough, I boxed a kid at Old Trafford the night before. Not on the pitch, obviously, but in one of the lounges they had a boxing dinner event, and I ended up boxing on that night. I was 15 years old, and Nigel Benn was fighting Chris Eubank at Old Trafford the following night, and my uncle got us the tickets, and we were sat right at the back. Nigel and Chris were about that big, But the atmosphere, and Chris Eubank, I have respect for Chris Eubank, but Nigel Benn was right up my street. I was always an aggressive fighter, and when I used to just see how aggressive Nigel was, and how the fans used to look at him with such love, I mean, come on, Nigel, and Nigel, he'd wear his heart on his sleeve, he'd throw everything at it, wouldn't he? And I thought, well, I can't wait for the day, or hopefully I'd love the day to come where people look at me like they look at Nigel, with that such, in awe, a little bit of his intensity and how much love the fans had for him. And yeah, and that's how Nigel Benn was my first boxing hero. Then eventually, as I got more and more into boxing, Roberto Duran became my ultimate boxing hero, and I've met him on a number of occasions, and sometimes he even messages me on my phone, which blows me away.
Strange to see.
Roberto Duran texting me. But yeah, Nigel got the ball rolling for me at first. I was a massive Nigel Benn fan.
So you turned professional in 1997, under the direction of Frank Warren. How did that come about?
Frank Warren was training a lot of Billy Graham's fighters at the time. He was training Ensley Bingham. He was training Steve the Viking Foster, who was also the Commonwealth light middleweight champion. And also he promoted Carl Thompson, who was the WBO cruiserweight champion of the world. If you remember, he had them two wonderful fights with Chris Eubank, in which he won them both. So Billy Graham was training a lot of Frank Warren's fighters, really. And to be honest, Frank Warren was the biggest promoter, at the time. Still is today in many respects. You've got Eddie Hearn, who runs Matchroom, but Frank Warren's still there doing it with Tyson Fury and that. But at the time, he was the biggest promoter in the country. He was promoting a guy called Prince Nassim Hamed. At the time, he was the biggest name in British boxing, and I feel very grateful and blessed that as an 18-year-old, not just as an 18-year-old, certainly as a young pro coming through, that I was able to box on a load of his undercards. It was a great experience for me. I boxed when I was 18 years of age. I boxed at Madison Square Garden, on the undercard when Nassim Hamed boxed Kevin Kelly, and then I boxed in Atlantic City on Naz's undercard. When he boxed Wayne McCulloch, so for a youngster to be fighting in Atlantic City in Madison Square Garden, it was so it was the right decision at the time to sign with Frank Warren, because not only was he training a lot of Billy Graham's fighters, he was the best promoter in the country back then.
I think it was only your second fight that you had when you were over in America without a trainer. What was that experience like?
Well, normally when there's a fight in the United States, we all get up. We always watch it at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. So what they tend to do, they tend to have a show in the UK first, and then once the transmission gets to about midnight, then they go over to the United States. And I shared a gym with a guy called Ensley Bingham. He was the British light middleweight champion, and he was due to defend his British title on the same night I was due to box in Madison Square Garden on the undercard of Nassim Ahmed. So my trainer, Billy Graham, said to me, so it's obviously be a dream for me as a trainer to go Madison Square Garden and perform. Never mind for you as a fighter, but obviously Ensley's defending his British title and you've only had one fight, so I'm going to have to stay here with Ensley. You're going to have to go over there on your own. I thought, nice one. Thanks for that. But yeah, it was extremely hard to go over there, But it was, talk about, it showed that I had the cojones for it, as they say, you know what I mean? 18 years of age, Madison Square Garden, on your own, without a boxing trainer, after only one fight. But it was a great experience, and for a kid from the council estate, it was only a few weeks earlier I was boxing at, say, Salford Working Men's Club, you know what I mean? And then to be boxing at Madison Square Garden, and like that, it was incredible. And from being from the council estate, the ring announcer was Michael Buffer, let's get ready to rumble, and George Foreman was commentating for HBO, which was great because I ended up buying a grill off him.
I think we all have.
Ricky Hatton, yeah. So and no one knew what I would have got, what I went on to achieve. No one knew what I was going to go on to achieve. But that to box at Madison Square Garden, I think with everything I have achieved, is still one of the highlights of my career.
Definitely, and I think that achievement at that age, was incredible. And I think, your first, title was the Central Area Light Welterweight Championship against Tommy Peacock. Now, as timing would have it, 22 years on, your son Campbell, I think, is well known that he is, he's a boxer as well. So what is it like, watching your son box, and did you expect him to follow you down that route?
No, I didn't expect it because he was a late starter. He only started, Campbell, my son. He only started when he was 14 years of age. When you think he went professional at 18 years of age.
Yeah.
Which was like, he'd only been boxing 4 years. I had 75 amateur fights in which Campbell had 24. Now, so to go professional with, with the name that he had, with the pressure that was on his shoulders, it was a very, very big ask. I didn't want him to go professional. I worked as hard as I did so my son wouldn't have to go professional. But and he was too young to see me fight, when I was at the height of me time. But he's obviously, when he got a little bit older, he heard about what his dad used to do for a living, and he'd have got the YouTube videos out, and watched me. And then one particular day he come to the he come in the gym, and I thought he used to just come in the gym and watch all the lads train. And one day he walked in and said, Dad, can I put the gloves on? I'd like to do a bit. I went, oh, here we go.
Set him up.
Yeah, it started, it's off on it. But he's done me very, very proud. He's gone into the hardest game in the world, boxing, with a dad that did what I did, so yeah, it may have opened a few doors for him with having the name, but I think the pressure on his shoulders with having it, I think it equals itself out. You've got to say, well, maybe I've opened a few doors. But we were talking there, the Central Area Light Welterweight title. I fought for it after 10 fights. He's fought for it after 13. He's going exactly the same route. You know what I mean? I'll match him as well as I can, but sooner or later he's going to have to prove, whether he can fight or not. And at the end of the day, I with all my amateur experience fought for that title, and him with that little amateur experience, he's fighting for the same one. So I think you've got to give him credit. Yeah.
How do you you feel, obviously, watching your son box, because obviously it's a risky sport, is it one where you you can watch quite comfortably, or do you do you sometimes look away?
No, it's horrible. Yes, it's horrible. I mean, well, I've got, not only is it bad enough watching Manchester City, now I've got to watch my son fight. I manage Campbell now, and I do a bit of training sessions with him. Of course, I do. I have a lot of input into his training and his boxing in general. And he comes to the gym, and I do pad sessions with him. He comes to my gym and spars with my lads. But he's trained by my brother Matthew. Matthew was, had a good boxing career. He was a European champion, made 5 defences of the European title. He actually went the full distance with Canelo Alvarez, Saul Alvarez, who's presently one of the best pound-for-pound fighters in the world today. I mean, he's normally stopped most people, but Matthew went the distance. So I just found it so horribly nervous. Whenever I used to just sit at ringside, half an hour earlier, being the toilets throwing up, I kid you not. It was really bad. And I know it worked for some fathers. Like Joe Kawasaki was trained by his dad Enzo. Back in the day, and Richie Woodall was trained by his dad Len, back in the day. And I just don't think I'd have been able to manage. Just knowing how I felt sat on the front row, to get in the corner, So it made sense for me to manage him, and for Matthew to train him. But it's not like Matthew does the training and he'll be in the corner with him, but I have plenty of input, into his training camp and his career. So it's a winner. But I didn't fancy doing it. I'll be honest with you, didn't fancy it. No.
Fair enough. So, in my introduction, you've obviously now got your MBE, which was bestowed on you by King Charles. So, what did he say to you?
He turned around and actually said to me, because I mean, when I got my I beat Kostya, then I'd beat Carlos Mauser for the WBA title, and then I moved up to welterweight and become a 2-weight world champion when I beat Louis Collazo. Then I moved back down to light welterweight when I boxed in Las Vegas and won my title back against Juan Urango. And then I boxed against Jose Luis Castillo in Las Vegas, and that's when I got my MBE after that fight. But my fight against Castillo was on to Setanta Sports, where it previously been on Sky Sports. Well, that one was on Setanta Sports, and King Charles said to me when I walked up, it was nerve-wracking because you don't just walk up the step like that. You've got to walk. They tell you take 3 steps, bow, take 2 more steps, turn to the side. But I thought I'm never going to remember it all. I'm never going to remember all that. But yeah, anyway, you had to do, and he gave me the MBE, talked to me, and he said, "Oh, Ricky," just said, how well you've done. You've done the country proud, and to see all them fights, them fans go to Las Vegas to watch you." I thought, they haven't got Setanta in Buckingham Palace, have they? To watch all them fights that went over to see you. But what it was, I remember, services to boxing, but I always did my charity work. I've always done my charity work from day one. I've always, you'd never see me finish a fight without thanking the fans. You know what I mean? It meant a lot to me. I like to think I had that many fans, not because I had an exciting style. I was a body puncher, but I also kept my feet on the floor and kept to my roots, and and I think that's why people liked me as well. And I think to take all them fans over to Las Vegas like I did, I think the record beforehand was Frank Bruno's one of my heroes. He still is and always will be my hero. Doesn't matter what I did, but I think for the Tyson fight, Frank took 10,000 fans, and for the Mayweather fight, 40 went over to watch me. And if have that well, bigger crowd than my heroes. Yeah, can never wake up with that. So my proudest achievement was always the fans, and I think they helped me. They helped me fly the flag, and I think that's why we got my MBE. I think, yeah,
Definitely, and I think thinking back, when I've sort of watched you throughout your career, I think one of the things that always stands out is that sort of relationship and rapport you had with your fans. And I think you mentioned Floyd Mayweather there. When you even had the weigh-in, there was 5,000 people just at the weigh-in alone. What was that whole experience like?
yeah. It's when we went to Vegas I think for the Urango fight, it was 8,000 fans. Then for the Castillo fight, it was 10, 12,000. And then for the Mayweather fight, it was 40,000. And then for the Malignaggi fight, I think it was 20,000. You know what I mean? It was, and you'd certainly, when I used to fight, you never thought you was in the States. You just walk down the strip, you know what I mean? And you just see, fans sat outside the hotel having a beer. There's only one Ricky Hatton. Then you go in the hotel, they'll all be stood on the slots and the couches like that. You didn't think you was in the United States, and it must have been very daunting for Floyd Mayweather, who was from Las Vegas.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, for me to come over with all these fans and everything like that, it must have been hard for him, to be honest with you. I mean, it would have done my head in. I think if 40,000 American fans had come to Manchester, I'd have an upside down smile on as well. But great times. And even though the Mayweather fight ended in defeat, and the Pacquiao fight ended in defeat, still two of the proudest moments of my career, because they will go down in pound for pound rankings as arguably, the two greatest of all time. Muhammad Ali, I think we can all agree, he'll always be the greatest for reasons other than boxing and stuff like that. But most people, they would say that Manny Pacquiao and Floyd Mayweather were the two of the greatest of all time. And until I made me comeback, they were the only two that beat me. So even though it ended in defeat, still look back of it with great pride. When people still come to me and talk about it. Oh, Ricky, your fights in Vegas. Oh, it's some of the best times we've ever had. Makes me feel proud, yeah.
Definitely, and it certainly should. And I think one of the things, that I think, although we do very different careers and different people do different things in here, I think one of the things that, you've sort of touched on there is that resilience in defeat, and you're coming back from, from bad experiences. What advice and what always inspired you to get back up and keep going?
Well, I've had so many good times, as we mentioned, here, but it's been well documented of how many, I've had so many bad times. And when I mean bad times, nearly wasn't here to have this talk with you. It was that bad. I had that much success as an amateur, and then turned professional and had all these happy times and won these titles and gone to Vegas. But then the first time I got beat, I took it very, 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 very hard. You know what I mean? And it doesn't matter what people say. What are you worried about, Ricky? It's Floyd Mayweather. There's no shame in that. It doesn't matter. I went there and I thought I was going to beat him. And when I didn't, I struggled with it really, really, really badly. But then, I decided to carry on with my career, and then he ended up boxing at the City of Manchester Stadium. 55,000 fans turned up for that fight, which was incredible. So my confidence was back up then. But then I fell out with Billy Graham, who was my trainer and lifelong friend. So my head fell off again. And then I boxed Paulie Malignaggi in Las Vegas, where Nolan Liam Gallagher carried me belts in, which was always been a big Oasis fan, So my frame of mind was back up then. And then I got knocked out by Manny Pacquiao, which in 2 rounds, which I was devastated. Then I fell out with my mum and dad. Then I had to retire from boxing, and then I split up with my partner. So thinking, something I've done all my whole life, boxing. Then all of a sudden, no boxing, no Billy Graham, no mum and dad, no girlfriend. Went through such a bad period, and I tried killing myself several times, and I couldn't do it. And I think my family, loved ones and close ones knew I was in a bit of a bad way, but I tried my best to shield it from them because I didn't want them to worry about it. Even my partner at the time who I was living with, I'd be there with a knife at my wrist, crying buckets, and then she'd come home from work, and then I'd put a brave face on, "Hey, love, you had a good day," and I'd shield it. So I think people knew I was suffering, but I don't think they knew to what extent I was suffering. So it took me a long time to get where I am, to be honest. And I think the best advice is you just go and see someone. If there's something on your mind, if there's something, don't be ashamed to admit you can't do it on yourself. You might need a little bit of help. And that's what I did, because I couldn't do it on my own. But the first thing I did, was when I went out and sat down and spoke to someone, I went in this, saw this psychiatrist, and I said, you need to tell me what to do here. I'm going to kill myself. I won't be here next week if you don't tell me, help me out, tell me what to do. And it's the best thing I did. And bit by bit, I got myself on the straight and narrow, pulled myself together. And, I praise God that I went in to speak to that gentleman and to put it right. Because if that's the case, I made up with my mum and dad, I made up with Billy Graham. I wouldn't have seen Campbell turn professional. I wouldn't have seen my granddaughter. I wouldn't have seen my two daughters. And I missed out on so much. So if there's anybody out there that has got a, there will be, because we're everywhere these days. I think the best advice I can give you all today is just go and speak to someone and get it off your chest, and it'd be the best thing you do.
I think it's incredible advice, and I think we as a business and also in our sector, the guys outside, you've probably seen the Lighthouse charity. At Speedy Hire, we work with the Lighthouse charity, and one of the big campaigns we've ran is to raise awareness of male suicide, particularly within the construction sector, which is, as I'm sure we're all agreed, is a huge problem, and there's too many, mainly young men, dying unnecessary deaths. So yeah, absolutely. And the advice that
I think it's the same. It's all under the same banner in many ways. Depression, suicide. I think suicidal, mental health. I'm an ambassador for lots of charities, you know what I mean? And it's just, if you're feeling down, feeling depressed, if you're suicidal, if you're this or that, it's all under the same. Just got to go and speak to someone. Don't be ashamed to admit I can't do it myself. I was at home. I thought when my second baby was born, Millie, my first little girl, she was born, and I thought that's what's going to get me back on the straight and narrow now. I thought, come on, Rick, get yourself together. It's not about you now. You've got Campbell now. You've got little Millie. It's about you getting yourself back together now and getting strong. That didn't even work. Do you know what I mean? So if your little baby, which my kids mean the world to me, and even that couldn't get me. Even that couldn't get me doing. So go and speak to someone. It's the best thing you'll do, honestly. It's the best thing you'll do. Don't be ashamed, it'll work for you.
I think as well, you've been a great inspiration, to many people, and I think there'll be so many people that are encouraged, that you're obviously here to tell the tale, and you seem in a much better place now. And you've obviously more recently you've been a promoter, you've been involved in a trainer. So just out of interest, are there any sort of stars of the future that we should be watching out for?
I think there's a great fighter. He had hard lines. Nick Ball from Liverpool. He got a draw for the world title, didn't he, a few weeks back? I think he should have. Got the decision. I thought he had very hard lines, but I think he'll be back. But yeah, there's what's it? I can't think of the name. I can't think of the names actually. Ben Whittaker. Ben Whittaker is the one on TV. He's a little bit mouthy. Not everyone's cup of tea. He's a little bit flashed and he's nothing like that. But I think his natural ability is actually there to be seen. And he has the potential to go on to be one of the greats, British greats that we've had. I think his potential is that good. But I'm also a professional trainer myself now. I train. A lady from Birkenhead, Chloe Watson, who is the European flyweight champion. I think she can bring a world title back to Birkenhead. And I've got 4 to 5 unbeaten prospects, that are on the verge of either an area title or an English title. But I see that as my job now. If I can bring, boxing did so much for me. If I can bring the next one through, that can hopefully make us all as proud as I think I did. That's what my job is now, try and bring the next one through, give someone the sort of joy I got from the sport, and also being an ambassador for mental health. If talking about mental health saves one person today, or one person can pass the advice on or something like that, then my job's been done as well. So I think it's giving it a little bit back to the boxing sport that's been back to me, and giving a little bit back to those that are in a dark place, because I'd have missed out on so much.
Definitely. I think we've discussed a lot today, about what, quite frankly, was an incredible career. What would you say your main achievement is in boxing?
I would say the fan base. The fan base, it doesn't matter what money you've got in the bank or belts in your trophy cabinet, the best feeling I get is when I see some youngster come up to me and ask me for a picture, or some, anyone here today will come up talking about the good times, the fights in Vegas, or you fight against Kostya, or the atmosphere was this and that. That's doesn't matter. When I like to think when I'm dead and buried, my legacy will still be here because of the fights I was and the person I like to think I stood for. So it'll be my fan base. I mean, yeah, the Mayweather fight was probably, Mayweather and Pacquiao, two arguably the greatest of all time. The night I beat Kostya and become the #1 in my weight division, that was my greatest boxing win. My greatest boxing win in the ring. But my greatest achievement in boxing was the fan base, that I've had, and just being here today and speaking to so many people, and so many people listening to me talk here today, it's means the world to me.
Brilliant. And I think, as you said, you've always had a real connection with, your fan base and the supporters that would come along. So finally, we're obviously in the city of Liverpool. You're a big Man City fan. A lot of Arsenal fans in the audience as well. Who's going to do it?
I don't know. I don't think City are playing as well at this stage of the season. I don't think they're playing as well as they have done in previous years gone by. I think the previous years gone by, when we've won the league, post-Christmas, we've left everyone for dead, haven't we? But, I mean, Liverpool are a lot better, now, and Arsenal a lot better. I think Arsenal's bottle went last year. I think I don't think the bottle will go this year. I think they'll be there till the end this year. But at the minute, City are winning like I think Manchester United won like that. When they were winning the titles, City aren't playing particularly well, but they're winning. That's what gives me confidence. And at the end of the day, we're still with a shout for the league. We're still in a shout for the FA Cup, and we're still in the shout for the Champions League. So as a City fan, I think you've just got to be excited. But what makes it more exciting. A few years ago, it was only Liverpool and United, or it was United, Arsenal won it. I think there's 4 or 5 teams now that that probably not in line for the title, but it's a lot more competitive now, isn't it? And the teams at the bottom can beat the teams at the top now, can't they? Which is the most scary thing. But yeah, I think we'll be thereabouts. Yeah.
Definitely. Anyway, finally, I just want to thank you personally, Ricky, for your time today, and also as well coming along and being part of our expo. So yeah, thank you very much, Ricky, and everyone, please show your appreciation.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you.